Hello, everybody. This is module number 232 for the subject of strategic human resource management. And in this module, we will talk about the analytical models, particularly the Lewin's model of change. It's a very famous model of change, and most of the textbooks about organizational change discusses this model in a very detail. The analytical models are within the planned approaches to change. That means that the change can be planned in an organization and it can be executed and the goals can be achieved. So within the planned approach, if you guys remember, there were two types. First was the planned approaches, and in that planned approaches, we had the best approaches model. That suggests that there are best practices every company should follow. So within the planned approach, the second approach is analytical. And in this module, we will talk about analytical models. So the analytical models, what are the basic premise of the analytical models? So they understand us how the change can be brought in any organization. So these models suggest that change management programs should proceed like other programs, and change can be achieved in phases. However, they do not prescribe some specific practices. Just like the best practices models, they prescribe some practices that should be applied, and change will occur. However, these analytical models suggest that yes, change can happen in a phase, and one phase, two phase, or three phase, but there are no best practices. So as I said that in this model, we will talk about the Lewin's model of change. The Lewin's model of change, if you see the three phases here, the first phase is unfreezing, second is moving, and third is freezing. So within this model, Lewin's argue that if any organization wants to bring any change, first it has to, or it needs to, unfreeze the existing status or existing practices or existing stable stage, whatsoever it is. So unfreeze whatsoever you are doing or whatsoever is happening in the organization related to the change. Unfreeze refers to, in other words, that you start talking about that we need to bring change or we need to adapt some change. Unfreeze maybe, for example, if you want to relocate your offices or international locations, you start talking about that next year or within the 6 months, we would be moving to other places. So actually you are unfreezing. Similarly, for example, if you are dissatisfied with the production process, dissatisfied with the marketing process, or dissatisfied with the culture of the organization, and you believe that the culture should be changed, you start talking about these things, identifying and asking people to give suggestions, asking people what is your opinion. So people will, you see that they will start realizing that the change will occur or organization is interested in making some changes. So that is the first stage or first phase in the analytical models, or particularly in the Lewin's model, that unfreezing the current state of understanding the current state of beliefs or current assumptions about how the system works. In the second stage, moving, that is the stage where you are actually implementing or you are actually making those changes what you have planned for, because this is the planned model of change. So moving is basically implementing those changes or trying to change whatsoever you wanted. The third stage is freezing. Once you have realized that, okay, the change has happened or change has occurred, or you are satisfied with whatsoever you wanted to change, the change in culture or the location, then you have to freeze that stage. As I said in the last modules, that there is a possibility that people will go back to the previous beliefs, previous assumptions, previous processes of manufacturing or anything. So it's a very simple and a straightforward model. It suggests that first you need to unfreeze, then you move forward, implement the change, and then freeze again. And after some times, you will realize that whatsoever we are doing it for quite a long time. And these are the set practices in the organization. So maybe most applicable, there is a criticism on the analytical models, particularly on the Lewin's model. that may be most applicable to small to incremental change rather than big and transformational changes. Another set of criticism is that it may be less effective where change is complex, where change is long term, and there is a disagreement about what is the purpose of change and what would be the outcome of change. If there is a disagreement about, then there might be this approach or this model might not be very helpful. So a political perspective also suggests that understanding organizations in terms of political arena, people are involved in political games and in the power and politics. That perspective also need to be carefully considered before you apply Lewin's model of change. Thank you.